Hey y'all, it's Kara. I hope you're ready for another chaotic video because exactly zero planning went into this. I just decided I was gonna do it about 30 seconds ago because I just completely yeeted myself into oblivion for the past month. I'm making this video all about books that I would give just about anything to be able to read again for the very first time. So I have 9 books to talk about today, but before I get started, I want to explain a little bit about my thought process behind choosing the books that I'm gonna be talking about today. These are not necessarily my favorite books of all time. If a book is on this list, it's either because I loved it so much, maybe it had a twist, maybe it had these characters in it that like I just would give anything to be able to go back and read it and get immersed in that world for the first time again. Or alternatively, some of these books just really piqued my interest in a way that, you know, when you just have a book you can't get out of your mind. So like now I don't want to move forward and waste my time on a reread because the reread wouldn't be as good as the first time reading it, even if it's a 3-star book. Like, I don't want to waste my time rereading this book, but it's something I wish I could go back in time and read for the first time again. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a book that falls in the category of I don't recommend this very often. I think I gave it 3 stars, but I just think about it all the time. I don't want to reread it, but I read it right when I was graduating from college, and it was right after I finished A Little Life, which is my all-time favorite book. So just how can you follow that up? It's Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This book is about an investigative reporter who has a questionable mental health state, and she has to return back to her toxic hometown to report on some girls who have been murdered in her hometown. And she returns, not only like is the hometown toxic, the family is toxic, and they're just weird. And this entire book has that really creepy and dark atmosphere. Like, this book is so dark, and it gets under your skin in a way that you just can't put your finger on. Like, after you're just reading for a while, you start to maybe feel sick, and it's not necessarily because of the plot, but it's just because of all of the feels getting into you. Oh, that's a horrible way to describe this, but you know what I'm talking about if you've read it, and I think that Flynn does this in all of her writing. So the reason that I would want to go back and read this for the first time is because I wasn't really enjoying it while I was reading it, because I thought that I had the book completely figured out, and on some level I kind of did. I kind of guessed a major twist early on in the book, and then every detail, like from chapter after chapter, kind of supported this whole idea that I had. And I think that's partly the point of the book. I think that it's okay if you guess this twist early on, but what I didn't see coming was this final like twist of a knife at the very end that I didn't see coming. And I think that if I had just relaxed and enjoyed the story for what it was and not been like salty and mad, like, ugh, I already know what's gonna happen, then I think I probably could have enjoyed it more. So that's kind of the example of I want to go back and reread it for the first time, but I don't want to waste my time in rereading it now. Let's keep going. Okay, this is a good follow-up because it's kind of in that same vein. It's In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. If you've ever watched a video of mine, you've probably heard me talk about how Ruth Ware and I just don't click. I really like her concepts, and I love how usually she puts all of her characters in an isolated setting and then either turns the characters against each other, or she puts them in these really intense situations. But then my problem comes in with Ruth Ware when the books are so long. Like, to me, they just feel very long and drawn out, and then the endings are usually just wild, like something that you can't see coming. Like, I kind of like it when a twist comes out of left field, but then when you go back and think about it, it's something maybe you should have seen coming. You just about can't see her twist coming. She just throws them at you, and it's crazy. But I think about this book all the time. This is another book that I think I gave 3 stars, and it is my favorite Ruth Ware book, but it just has one of those endings that I couldn't get on board with. But there are definitely some scenes that I can't get out of my mind, and I read this book years ago. It's about a girl who gets an invitation to a bachelorette party, and the bride is somebody who she just wouldn't have thought that she would have been invited to this bachelorette party, and they go out into this wooded area, like to stay in a cabin, and they get snowed in, and it's very creepy. It's really fun to read if you read it in the winter time. I would imagine. I didn't read this book in the winter time, so I wish that I could go back and read this for the first time and get like all of those snowy details and stuff like in the winter. I think that it would have really added a lot to this experience. I will never revisit this book. Like, it's not something that I'm interested in reading again. But again, there are just some really creepy scenes that I wish when I was reading it for the first time that I could go back and get those same goosebumps because I didn't see it coming. Actually, looking over my pile that I have left here, I think that the rest of the books are just books I genuinely would want to go back and read for the first time again just because I love them so much. So that's pretty fun. let's go ahead and get started with those. The first one is Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. I read this for the first time either my 9th or 10th grade. I think my 9th grade year in high school, just for no reason. Nobody was asking me to do this. I don't know, I just was going through a phase, and like this whole book became my entire personality trait in high school. Like that was it. I was the girl that just kept reading this book and took it everywhere I went. And I'm fine with that. That's probably how people from my high school remember me. We're good. Nothing much has changed since then. My senior year in high school, I chose this book to write a paper on, so I reread it in chunks a few times. I think I've only read it all the way through one time, but then I've gone back and reread major sections for papers or just for enjoyment. I think that this is such a good classic. Like if you're somebody who is afraid to pick up a classic because you think it's going to be too dense or not relatable or hard to read, I really recommend getting this book. This translation is by Constance Garnett, and I think that it's really great if you want to read a classic. If you read something that's been translated to English, translations like this generally make the books more readable in my opinion, since it's just kind of translated into more of a basic form, but it's still like the writing is still so beautiful. But what I love about this book isn't the writing, it's the story. It is so good. Let's dive right into what this is about. So this is about Anna Karenina, who is married to a Russian official, like a government official, and he's very, very high in the rankings. She does have a son who she loves with all of her heart, but her marriage was arranged. She's married to, I guess he's like a bit of an older man. And then she falls in love with the young, strapping Count Vronsky, and things just get set on fire. Not literally, just it's intense. It's juicy, you guys. It's really juicy. So you probably know that much about this story. Let me tell you what you probably don't know if you've not read it. That there is this character, and his name is Konstantin Levin, and he is my favorite literary character of all time. He's a hardworking farm man, and he battles with unrequited love. He's trying to be a good member of his family. He's trying to be his best self. Like Anna Karenina might be my second most favorite literary character of all time. If she's here, Levin is off the charts. He's way up there. Like I can't begin to explain to you how much I love this man. If this video doesn't do anything else, I hope that it has put Anna Karenina on your radar, like on your TBR radar, because if you've not read it, I suggest you at least give it a try. You can always try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to. Like this is gonna be guaranteed. This is at your library. You can go pick it up. It's free at the library. Go get it. Go try it. I'm excited for you. Y'all, I really just went from In a Dark, Dark Wood to Anna Karenina to The Hating Game. No complaints here though. This is one of the best little enemies to lovers romance stories that I've ever read in my life. And I would give anything to be able to read it again for the first time just because of the build up. It's all about that, the banter. We're gonna get to some superior banter in the next book I talk about, but the banter here is so good. There's so much tension between the two main characters here. They're rivals at a publishing company, which working at a publishing company has been my dream since I was just a tiny little girl. Like I'm not like 8 years old. That's what I wanted to do. So I just loved the setting of being in their office, first of all. Second of all, these characters are perfect. They're amazing. And it's just one of those where I've tried going back and reading it again, and it's still a fun read, but like just reading the tension between these two for the very first time, like not knowing exactly what's to come, like not knowing exactly what their journey is going to be and like the trajectory the book is going to take. I wish I could read it again not knowing any of that. And I think that I'm friends with so many people on BookTube who are huge fans of this book as well. If you ask any of them to make a list of like books you would want to read for the first time again, I'm willing to bet that The Hating Game would probably be on there just because I want to read that build up for the first time again. Beach read, we knew it was coming. This is probably my favorite book of 2020. One of my new all-time favorite books that I read earlier this summer. It's about two rival authors who are both in writing slumps, and they decide to swap genres for this summer. So January is going to be writing literary fiction, and Gus is going to be writing cute contemporary romance. And then throughout the book, these two explore their friendship, their relationship, like what they are to one another. And I know I just said it, but I've just never read banter this good. Same points with The Hating Game. The build up, the tension, like I want that for the first time again. This is something that I will without a doubt read again. I wouldn't be surprised if future me from 1 week from today came here right now and said, yeah, you reread Beach Read this week. That's what you did with your week last week. I'd be like, I'm not surprised. So yes, I want to experience all of that for the first time again, but more importantly, I think, is that I didn't know what to expect from this book going into it. I thought it was just gonna be really cute and really fun, and I love books like that. That's fine if like I just want to read something that doesn't have that much of a large larger theme or message, but this book goes so much deeper. It's all about loss and handling trauma and just showing up for the people in your life. Like, it was so good, and I just didn't see any of that coming, and I just want to read it again not knowing that, but I will happily read it again knowing all of that as well. This next one is kind of a wild card. It's Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, and I had to read this for school in the 10th grade, and it is a true story. This is nonfiction. It's based, Jon Krakauer is a journalist, and it's all about this guy named Chris McCandless and how he decides one day to just drop everything and move out to the Alaskan wilderness. And it is just a crazy story. And I didn't know anything about this story when I read this book for the first time, and it destroyed me. And I think about it all the time. And I didn't even have this book on the list for the video, but when I went to go pull things down from my shelves, I saw this and I thought I have to add it in just because of how much I think about this book, how much I think about Chris and his story. If you have heard this story before, I still would recommend this book just because I think it's very well-written journalism, but if you don't know anything about it, I really highly recommend that you check it out if you like stuff that's hard-hitting and like deep thinking and like self-exploring. This is a really cool transcendentalist book. Speaking of books I had to read for school, one that I talk about all the time, nothing new here, The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This is one that I have reread, so I can very confidently say that I wish that reread hadn't been a reread. It wasn't as good as the first read, and I love this story and I recommend this book all the time, and I wish that I could just go back and experience it for the first time. It's about a Southern Baptist preacher who moves his entire family to Africa, and it's his wife and his 4 daughters. And once they get there, it's basically like a mission trip, and he's gonna be the preacher for this town, but this town doesn't have any Christian values. They don't know what he's doing here, and it's really hard to try to like get them to see their perspective, but also vice versa. It's very hard for the two cultures to understand each other. It has a lot of commentary on colonial imperialism, which is what I wrote my entire senior paper on for my major, and this book can go just about as deep as you want to take it, but also on the surface it just is a really heartbreaking story of a family that just completely goes through it. That's all I'm gonna say like specifically, but this is a horrifying book, and just about anything that could go wrong does go wrong here. So it's really good if you like the juicy drama and like something sad, but it's also really good if you're looking for something deeper. I just wish I could read it again not knowing how dark it's gonna get. The last two, I'm just sitting here yelling. I know my neighbors are like, oh no, she's filming again. These last two I am including because of these insane either twists or like just really good storylines that I want to read again, like not knowing anything about. The first is Shutter Island. I know that this is not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people say it's really slow, really boring. I read this really early for the first time in high school, and I've read this book 5 times. Like, I'm not kidding you. It used to be a tradition like in high school and even early in my college career where I would reread this every Christmas. It just, I don't know, just one of those weird things. Completely annotated this book. Absolutely love it. I personally don't think it's boring, especially after you've read it once and know what the big twist is. This one is so fun to go back and reread because it is right in front of you just about on every page. Like, I want to tell you about it so bad, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But if you like thrillers, if you don't know anything about the story, or if you don't know what the big reveal, the big twist is, please try it. The book is about these 2 US Marshals who get called into Shutter Island, which is an island that houses this mental institution for these highly dangerous, mentally ill criminals. And they get called in to investigate the disappearance of like the island's most dangerous criminals, or just someone who's very dangerous, who has just mysteriously gone missing and they can't figure it out. In just explaining this book, I've zoned out like 4 times just thinking about how good it is. I would give anything to not know how this book ends and read it again for the first time. I would give anything, just about. Last but not least is another one that every time I mention it, I get people like, ooh, I don't like it. That's fine. We don't have to have the same opinions. I personally love it. It's No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is one of the best books that I read last year. It is one of the most thrilling, most exciting, most fast-paced books. I read it in 1 day on Halloween of last year. So that just kind of made it perfect for like the vibes, the creep factor. if you will. It's about this girl trying to make it home through a really bad snowstorm. Her mother is sick and she's really making it a priority to get home as fast as she can despite the weather being really dangerous to drive in. And she hits a point where she has to pull over at this gas station, and it's like a rest area, I guess, and once she gets there, she gets snowed in with a group of strangers, and then while she's there, she realizes that not only like is she in danger, but there's a young child that is in danger as well, and it is just so twisty and turny. It's not like I would want to read this one again for the first time because of some type of grand twist or grand reveal. It's nothing like that. It's just that every single page of this book captured my attention because I had to know what was gonna happen, and I've just really never had another reading experience like that where it was that page turning. And I think I've gone back and tried to reread sections before, but you know how it goes. Once you know what's gonna happen, the stakes don't feel as high, so I just wish that I could go back and read it again for the first time. All right, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I just want to thank my really good friends who have been reaching out recently, asking where I've been, if everything is okay. Everything's fine. I've just been super busy, and I really, like, I can't thank you enough for all of your support. You guys make me so happy. I've still been watching and loving your videos. I'm planning to get way more active, like, as I get used to this new schedule that I have, but I just want to let you know that I love you all. Thank you so much for watching as always. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.